And we are recording. Hi, Kaarina.
Hi.
My name is Raulf. I'm the founder of Boulder SEO Marketing. I'm super excited to have with me today Kaarina Kvaavik. Did I say the name okay?
You did. That was really good. Thanks.
Nailed it. And we're even color coordinated.
I know. Look at that. It looks as we planned this.
I know. Kaarina, you are with Language.io. I co-moderated a web panel entitled Newish Applications of Artificial Intelligence in Content Marketing and Localization with your CEO, Heather Shoemaker. And this is how we connected. You guys have a very interesting company that I think our audience may be interested in learning more about. So we're going to do this, I call it an expert interview today. So I'm very excited to have you with me here today. Why don't you quickly introduce yourself and the company?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kaarina Kvaavik. So I'm the Chief Business Officer at Language.io. I'm also a co-founder of the company. So I've been in the language industry for probably 25 years at this point. I was incredibly young when I started. So I know sort of localization inside and out. What we're doing at Language.io is a little different from straight localization. We're actually a software company. We're a SaaS company. And we help really big brands provide customer support to their customers in any language, right within CRM systems like Salesforce, Oracle, and Zendesk. So basically, a company can have a lot of live chats coming in from their customers, but maybe they don't have agents that speak all of these languages that their customers want to speak. So we're right there breaking the language barrier between a company and their customers. And we're focusing specifically, our technology is focusing specifically on an area called UGC, so user-generated content. And I think I'll get a chance to talk about that a little bit further in our conversation.
It's an extremely hot topic these days. I mean, a lot of local markets are like saturated, right? So the only way to expand a business or get more sales is to expand globally, right? So I think this is where you guys come in and
yes,
what you do. So I do have, I wrote down a few questions. Why don't we start with, why do marketers need to care about translation? We call it localization. And customer support. You go global, and now what?
Right, that's a really, really good question. So marketing's job, obviously, is to create brand recognition and enthusiasm, right, around brands so that people are gonna buy them, recommend them to others as well. Customer support has kind of been the ugly duckling of an organization for a long time. It's been seen as a cost center, but over the last 5 years, I would say it's really turned around so that people are seeing within a company that customer support actually generates revenue. So if you're providing a product or a service in an international market, you need to also support that market and those consumers, those buyers, in the language that they speak, because people buy what they can read. So to create that good customer experience, and I'm sure that you've heard about customer experience a lot, that really comes from the support side of the organization to make sure that the customers are happy, etc. There are even measurements around that, which are called, for instance, NPS scores, so Net Promoter Scores. I'm sure that marketing is really, really aware of. A lot of that comes from the customer support side. So if you're not supporting your customers well in the language that they want to speak, they're going to have a subpar customer experience, and they're going to tell their friends, their family, they're going to be on various message boards, etc., and talk about this and talk about a negative experience. You can turn that around completely by creating that positive experience instead, which is going to increase your NPS scores and spread like wildfire.
Yeah. And I mean, clearly remember, I grew up in Switzerland, you're from Sweden, often gets
Yep.
confused. So back in the days, right, when we bought a software application, it was only available in English.
Mm-hmm.
No support for German, French, whatever. So think back to those days and, think about where we are now having access to these, information in the languages, which is so important. So
Yeah, absolutely.
cool. So why is it especially dangerous to get marketing translations wrong?
Well, marketing is, a big part of, as we said, branding for a company, right? When it comes to marketing messages, where a lot of people are going wrong is that they think that they can, for instance, use machine translation, just straight machine translation. And I know that both you and I are going to know that this just doesn't work. Marketing messaging needs a little bit more massage, for instance, than just a straight machine translation. It actually often needs a bit more. We can talk about, you can translate a marketing message, but as it is in that particular local market, is that going to work? So I think you and I are, old enough to remember Coca-Cola's various slogans
Um,
in the 80s and in the 90s, right? Like Coke is it, or, there are a number of them. These slogans were probably spent millions of dollars on, right? To create that one message, accompanying videos and all of that. Now, think about this, think about Coke is it, right? And translate that into German. Is that going to work as a marketing message, a slogan for the German or the Swiss market?
no.
No, exactly. It's not going to work in Swedish either, like absolutely guaranteed, right? So there's a danger in using the wrong message when you're trying to introduce something to a new market. You need to take a look at the culture. You need to take a look at the demographics. You need to take a look at behavior, all of these things. So don't just translate your message. You may have to do something called transcreation. And if we talk about transcreation, that basically means adapting your message to a particular locale, right? And locale, Chris, like let's talk a little bit about locale. Let's talk a little about SEO as well, because that's important for marketing, right?
Yeah.
So,
Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Yeah, so locale. So people, when I speak German, right? But it's a different flavor. I'm from Switzerland. It's a different flavor than people in Germany speak or in
Yeah.
Austria. The same thing applies to the SEO keywords. A good example that I use in my presentations when I talk about international SEO is like, in Germany, a lot of people, they use the search term handy or smartphone to actually search for,
A
these
cell phone.
keywords, right? In Switzerland, they use Notel, which is a branded term that, was like the first brand that emerged, right? In Austria, it's yet a different word, right? But it's the same thing that we German speakers are searching for, but we all use different SEO keywords, right? So you need to do keyword transcreation, not just translation, to have a chance to actually get your website found for those target SEO keywords. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean I like everyone can go and search the internet, about translations gone wrong, right? But I have like some of my favorites. I have to write them down. But Mercedes-Benz entered the Chinese market under the brand name Benzi, all right, which actually means rush to die.
Okay.
You don't you have to do your research first, right? Pepsi slogan, Pepsi brings you back to life.
Oh, yeah.
Again, in the Chinese market was Pepsi brings you back from the grave. Fantastic, but like check your messages, check what they mean. I going back a number of years, I actually did a webinar series on website translations during .com, right? And how big that was. And I touched a little bit on URLs, and I gave some examples, some English examples. So for instance, there was a CEO of a company that wanted to take the URL getgift.com. So it would be great, but if you want to have that same URL in Sweden for the Swedish market and just perhaps change .com to .se, it actually translates to goat poison.
Oh God.
Not great, right? The same thing like a benign product name like Spyglass, right? It's something that's used in a lot of companies. They have products called Spyglass. In Swedish, that means vomit ice cream.
Oh, geez.
So yeah, so you got to do your research first, right? There could be legal issues. A lot of companies that I've talked to think that they can just translate or just run their T&Cs through like a machine translation. Don't do that, people out there. Just don't do it. You need to make sure that the laws that you're referring to are the local laws, right? Otherwise, you could be sued, lost, all that kind of stuff. Rework. Companies that don't do their research before they kind of try to brand something and do it in the local market, they're going to have to redo it. And the cost of rebranding is huge, or can be huge, right? You can lose customers, right? Don't insult your customers. Make sure that you really do the research that you need to do before you enter a market. Yeah. That's why marketing translations are really important.
Yeah, I mean, basically you get what you pay for, right? If you use machine translation, it's most likely
exactly
terrible. Yeah, very good point. All right. That being said, how can poor translations negatively impact a company's bottom line? And I actually have a good example once.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Start with yours. That's great.
So basically, we did a webinar back a long time ago with a massive software company. They initially used, I think, a machine translation for their help system. Getting the help system properly, professionally localized or translated and actually optimized for search can save a lot of money, right? We type stuff into Google, how can I fix this or that? We don't find it. We're going to pick up the phone. We're going to call the company. It's going to cost, I think the average cost is now around $50 per phone call to a call center, right? So they invest the money to properly optimize the help system to actually save money. Over to you.
This is right up my alley. I could have written that answer myself, but I don't have to because you did it. This is what we do, right? So we help companies provide translations of their customer support content, for instance, right? So content that like self-help, right, could be viewed by hundreds of thousands of people. It's the first line of defense for any customer support organization. If you can tell your customers, go find your answers yourself, that's what they want to do. So research shows that a lot of people don't want to pick up the phone. Companies don't want you to pick up the phone either because it's very expensive for them. So they want to push you to that self-help. If, however, your self-help, your knowledge base that's on your website is poorly translated, now you're going to have the cost of a poorly translated site or FAQs, articles, and then they're going to call you, right? So it's a double whammy. So you want to make sure that the content that can be seen by hundreds of thousands of people, spend your time and spend your money there. Make sure that it's properly translated. It's your first line of defense, right? So that every company has a lot of different types of content, right? So some of it's going to be seen by a lot of people, some of it is going to be seen by fewer people, and sometimes it's one-on-one conversations. So you can pick, what type of translation do you need for various pieces of content. It's not a one size fits all.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. All right, let me see. What are some of the pitfalls to look out for when looking for a software company that provides translation solutions? I assume you're not the only one out there.
Well, I would consider ourselves unique, but yes, no, I hear you. It's really going to depend a lot of what you're looking for. From my perspective, quality of translations is really high up there, and being able to match the type of quality that you want, understanding it's like I just said, there are different buckets of quality, right? Partnership. There are a lot of companies out there that's willing to translate your content and hand it back to you, and there you go. But if I was the shopper, if I was looking for this, I would want to have a partnership with that provider, so that they're almost an extension of me, extension of my company. They understand me, they know what I'm looking for. How do my processes work, so that I don't have to do all the rework to fit into their processes? It should be the other way around, while they still work as a trusted advisor, right? Our customers, they come to us and say, hey, Language IO, what do you think? How should we handle this? And we help them with that, in a partnership kind of way. You want to be transparent. Ethical and transparent is really important. And transparency around pricing. Like, make sure that there are no surprises. You want to share all of this information with your customer and give them the choice, right? Hey, it's you decide. Here are the keys to the kingdom. You decide how you want to have these translations done. We can guide you. We can share with you our expertise and our knowledge, but it's up to you on how you want to do this. I think it's really important to take a look at security, right? If you're providing, so take us again, for example, we work with a lot of what's called UGC, so user-generated content. That is, a lot of marketers are seeing this today as well, because it could be reviews on stuff on a website, a messaging board, a forum. That's all user-generated content. A lot of times, customers, buyers, the people that we're conversing with will send things over, for instance, live chat, that you really don't want them to send you. And it could be credit card information. It could be, hi, my name is Kaarina. I live at this and that address. All of this, it's called PII, right? So personally identifiable information. You want to make sure that your partner, that the translation partner that you're choosing, understands how to handle that, so that you're not going to get into legal trouble.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Let's move on here.
Sure.
Let me see. How has user-generated content, UGC, played a role in marketing recently, and what localization or translation challenges come with UGC?
Okay, so let's just define UGC first. So UGC stands for user-generated content, right? It refers to any content that an individual has voluntarily created and is shared amongst individuals, fans, or consumers of a brand, but they don't actually belong to that brand. So they don't work for Pepsi, they don't work, but they're sharing information about Pepsi, about Coke, about gaming situations, right? So this could be anything from social media posts to live chat between an agent and a consumer to review of a third-party website, right? So there's all this content UGC, and that content is really, really important these days to marketers, because 55% of consumers actually trust UGC content much more than any other forms of marketing. Right, 55%, that's pretty significant, right? User-generated videos on YouTube get 10 times more views than any content that's created and uploaded by a brand. I mean, take TikTok. It's going wild. My kids are stuck on TikTok completely. And 25% of search results for the world's 20 largest brands are links to user-generated content. So translating this content is obviously key, and it's key to get it right.
Wow.
And that's, yeah, it's like this, the numbers are staggering, right? And they're just getting higher and higher. So we handle that UGC content not only from a security perspective, as that we can strip out any type of PII before, before it happens and it damages you, but we can also use machine translation, which we are using ourselves, with our technology layered on top to get rid of all of those, could be industry jargons that don't translate very well, spelling mistakes, slang, acronyms, etc., before it goes back, so that the UGC content is actually properly translated. And we do this very differently from others, in our space, because a lot of times the other providers actually have to train a machine translation engine, and I'm sure that you know about these things, to get the content right, to get the branding right for a specific company, for their terminology. We don't have to do that. That's a very costly and time-consuming process. We actually have technology that we sort of layer on top of these various machine translation engines that make sure that this content, we get that content right. And it happens with a snap of a finger. So that's really important.
Man, so this takes me to my last question, and then I'm actually going to make it a double question. So what company would be a good fit for you guys in terms of, size? I assume you don't work with every kind of company. And how have marketing teams actually succeeded with Language.io?
So if you don't mind, can I share my screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just gonna see here. So here we go. I'm just gonna go into presentation mode.
Perfect.
All right, can you see this?
Yes, beautiful.
All right, great. So we're saying that the future of translation is conversational, right? So this is the conversational, the UGC piece. You ask about the brands that are working with us and who, what's the perfect spot for us. We work across vertical, across regions, across geography. We basically work with brands that are global or that need to be global. And here are some of the companies that we work with. And they're companies from really large, the Fortune 500 to smaller companies. But the main thing is that they're all looking to be global. And they understand that providing information, content, and conversations in local languages are really, really, really important. So I want to go back to an example, if you don't mind, of just this kind of UGC content. And I'm not sure how well you can see this,
yeah,
but
see you well.
This is actually a chat, a live chat that came in from one of our customers that we work with. So there was a support agent, and they had a customer that was Chinese speaking, and they were trying to help, figure out what exactly is going on. How can I help this customer? So what you see on the left is the original. If you would run the middle part, like the middle rectangular box, if you would run that through machine translation, you would get what you see on the left-hand side. I have Zhang Zhao Kaki card with annihilation keyword action, but it doesn't always trigger. Blind dishes. Can you help me solve this problem? GKD, my email is blah, 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 right? You as a support agent, you're not going to understand this, right? This is actually from Magic the Gathering, which is a big game. So it's a big gaming company. So what we do with our layer of technology, specifically around UGC, is that we have things in place, technology in place, that will help make this conversation actually understandable. So everything that you see there in orange are things that a standard machine translation engine would get wrong. But we then fix that and say, okay, so here are some specific vocabulary that is used for this particular customer. We will add that as glossary terms. They want certain things translated in a specific way. We fix misspellings. We strip out any kind of PII and encrypt it, make sure that it doesn't get transferred everywhere. And we also learn about things that are very locale specific. That blind dishes part is an expression that popped up in Beijing fairly recently, and it's actually doesn't mean blind dishes, but if you translate it directly, it says blind dishes. It actually means I'm confused, right? So with our technology layered on top of this UGC specific content says, I have an Eldrazi Devastator card. The support agent said, I know what an Eldrazi Devastator card, because that's what it is in English for me. With an annihilator keyword action, but it doesn't always trigger. I'm confused. Can you help me solve this problem? Do it quickly, please. My email is blah, blah, blah. So this is where technology from a company like ours can actually make the conversation understandable, so that you understand what is going on and you can help your customers and you can help to have that conversation. And the same goes obviously for marketing content.
Yeah. Fascinating. I'm sure we could continue to talk forever.
Oh, I could talk forever.
Then, well, we're getting more and more international SEO projects. I'm sure we will continue to be in touch. I'm going to add the links to the webinar that I mentioned below in the description.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Link to your company. And then, yeah, I hope if you're watching this video that you found it useful. Please feel free to reach out to Language.io. These guys are doing an amazing job, as you just saw. Kaarina, any last words, last tips, anything?
No, look, I mean, look at UGC. If you're a marketer out there, and you're looking at, what's happening out in the market, how can I become better? How can we market more? Really, truly take a look at user-generated content and where it's going. Understand the importance of your customer support team and how they're supporting your customers and your brand, so that they truly get the recognition that they should have, because they are a revenue generating group. And I think they still sometimes are placed in a separate bucket, but they really are incredibly important for a brand and for the image of a company.
Yeah, awesome. All right, thanks so much. That was awesome. I'm going to stop the recording here, and everybody stay safe and healthy and happy out there.
Thank you.